AVA. Paul, how are you? And I know you're excited about our guest.
Always excited to see Frank Fiore. He is a multi-talented, multi-genre, uh, multi-talented, award-winning author. So welcome, Frank. I always pleased to see you.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I love being here.
All right, Frank. So let's talk about the Jonathan Smythe books are soon coming out, the whole series, and especially book one, and it will be released in a couple weeks. And it's got to feel good, right?
That's correct. That's correct. What would you think of, or I'll position this. Suppose Jack the Ripper disappeared from England, which he did, and he fled to America. In fact, he fled to the Wild West, America, and a British sleuth, amateur sleuth, followed him out there to try and catch him in the act of his next murder. So how he did that was that he uh, found different horrific, terrible, horrible murders, and then he followed those to see if maybe he could catch John. He could catch the Ripper in the act in the act. So that's what the overall uh, the books are about, the series about, and each book covers a different case. Just like a sleuth would cover a case, and then he hopes that he's going to capture or catch the Ripper and send him back to England.
Wow, that's so cool because what if Jack the Ripper would come? And so, did he have a time machine, Frank? Or we don't know how that the
No,
whole
that's a
premise.
theory. No, that's an actual theory. I mean, after the last brutal murder, and it was brutal, that's where he actually took his time at the prostitute's home, and he cut her up into all kinds of pieces, and oh, it was horrible. But he disappeared after that. Nobody knows in history. Did he die? Was he caught? He disappeared? And so that's true. And a lot of different theories. And one of the theories is that he fled to America. And really the background the background understanding of that was that if you remember this was at Whitehall, and that's kind of close to a port, a London port, the docks. And one theory was that he was an American that happened to be there, whatever, in a cargo ship, because he only stayed for a little bit amount of time, committed the murders, get back on the cargo ship, and went back to America. And so that's what I'm basing my plot on, is that, and that eventually they got to find this guy who's really an American and not a Brit. And that's going to develop over the next over the books as they move on.
That's cool, and that's the process. So, was it about the same timeline that Jack the Ripper was doing his murders as the?
Exactly. Exactly. Late 1980, late 1980, late 1880s. And of course, the Wild West was during that time also.
So yeah, and who would have thought British, Jack the Ripper going over there? That's a perfect way of a hiding place, isn't it, Frank?
That's correct. That's correct.
I
Because
mean,
you've got this imposition of this Englishman, very staid and very proper, out in the Wild West with the cowboys and the criminals and everybody that at that time the West was very uncivilized. And then he has his sidekick, who passes himself off as a reporter for the London Times, but in reality he works for and is a an inspector for Scotland Yard, and because he believes that Jonathan Smythe is either the Ripper himself because he fled England, or they thought he fled, but he's just really following, or he knows a lot about the Ripper, and they tried to get him to come into give him a shakedown at the Scotland Yard, but he disappeared. Because he
so
took
we're
off.
gonna. So they decided the West, but it's a rude awakening for him and his sidekick, isn't it? Getting to the
Right.
West.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the sidekick just keeps saying I'm a reporter, but he does. But Smythe doesn't know that he works for Scotland Yard, and what I set up is kind of the same thing as you have um, with you have Watson and the inspector. And so again, there's a lot of throwbacks to the idea of Watson and what's his name, and that's the couple working together. Where like in Watson in those stories acts as the observer, the reader, making dumb questions and things like that, while the Abbott does the same thing. The Charles Abbott, the partner that follows Smythe around. So it's going to be very interesting that it is. So it's make an interesting series.
All right. And the best place people could check you out is go to frankfiore.com. Follow you on all the different social media platforms, Frank Fiore. You'll follow the novel on Twitter. And Frank, again, just great story that people need to pick up book one. And book one will take you through that journey, right? Of each one of them. And
starts the journey. And the first case is they call it the case of the Screaming Tunnel. And believe it or not, there is such a thing here in Arizona. It's in Poland, of all places, Poland, Arizona. And there is a Screaming Tunnel. My neighbor filled me in on it. They took a picture of it and everything. It's really interesting.
All right, Frank, we appreciate it, sir.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
All right, you're listening, watching the Neil Haley Show. We'll be